Hello and welcome, I'm Joshua Barnes and you're watching NewsX World. Let's first take a look at our top stories. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi is chairing another cabinet meeting as tensions between India and Pakistan continue to escalate. Small arms firing is again reported at the line of control following the deadly Pahalgam terror attack in Kashmir. US President Donald Trump celebrates his 100 days in office, stating nothing will stop me at a campaign-style rally. Trump mocks the Democrats, commends his tariff action and stance on immigration during a near 1 hour, 30-minute speech. Meanwhile, President Trump has signed an executive order easing tariffs on autos in a move to potentially prevent price hikes and plant closures. Meanwhile, the US says a trade deal with India is close to being announced amid continued global tariff uncertainty. South Korea says that 600 North Korean soldiers have died while fighting for Russia against Ukraine. Meanwhile, Russia has dismissed Ukraine's call for an extended 30-day ceasefire as France accuses Russia of cyber attacks. The United Kingdom's military has launched a joint operation with the United States targeting Yemen's Houthi rebels. The strikes targeted a cluster of buildings south of the capital Sana'a, which are reportedly used by the Houthis to manufacture drones. A Gaza medic detained by Israel has been released according to the Red Crescent. Meanwhile, a hearing on the humanitarian situation in Gaza has continued, with the UN saying an unseen level of suffering is taking place amid aid blockages. 3 people have been killed after a shooting in the Swedish city of Uppsala. The shooter, who opened fire at a hair salon in Vaksala Square, is still on the run as officers continue to investigate a motive. North Korea has conducted the first test firing of its new warship's weapons system, with cruise and anti-air missiles launched. The US and South Korean intelligence agencies are closely monitoring the activities, according to Seoul. We start off this hour as tensions are rising between India and Pakistan following the deadly terrorist attack in Pahalgam on April the 22nd that claimed the lives of 26 civilians. Amid growing diplomatic fallout, nearly 800 Pakistani nationals have left India through the Attari-Waghar border in just 6 days, following a government directive for short-term visa holders to exit the country by April the 27th. Meanwhile, India's External Affairs Minister Jai Shankar has reached out to foreign ministers from 7 non-permanent UN Security Council members to build international consensus. India is pointing to cross-border linkages in the attacks and has vowed a strong response. Former Pakistani Prime Minister Imran Khan, currently jailed, has called the incident tragic but warned India against placing blame without evidence. Tensions have further escalated, with continued ceasefire violations along the line of control as Pakistani forces opened fire in multiple sectors in Jammu and Kashmir for a 6th consecutive night. Meanwhile, Pakistan has reiterated comments of an alleged and imminent strike by India. Well, joining us to discuss these latest developments is retired Major General Rajan Kochar, who is a defence expert. Thank you for joining us today, Major General. I'd like to start off by talking about this meeting, the cabinet meeting that Prime Minister Narendra Modi is holding. What's the significance of this meeting and what can we expect to be an outcome?
Thank you, Joshua, for inviting me to the program. It's a very significant meeting. If you would be aware, yesterday evening there was a meeting with the Prime Minister's chaired. 7 members were there, and all those were there who were supposed to be carrying out a military action. You had the 3 service chiefs, you had the CDS, you had the Defence Minister, you had the NSA, and the Prime Minister himself. So certain decisions have been taken yesterday, and the chiefs have been conveyed that they have an open hand now to plan an operation, to select the targets and the timing of the operation. I think that has been made very, very clear to them. So today's meeting is a fallout of yesterday's meeting, because the Cabinet Committee on Security is the first and the foremost important committee which needs to be informed of the decision of the government. And the other wings of the government, in terms of railways, in terms of healthcare, in terms of infrastructure, in terms of finance, external affairs, everybody has to be kept into the picture. I would say the larger picture. So I think the things are moving towards a conflict. I have no doubt there is going to be a response or a military response from India, because the type of events which have actually unfolded, I am seeing this happening after 2002, when we had the Operation Parakram. At that point of time, when the mobilization of the forces had taken place on the Rajasthan border, Sialkot, and all those areas, we saw the entire Indian Army there. A similar kind of a situation is developing as of now. So what I could foresee is that this Cabinet Committee on Security, after it meets, there'll be a meeting of Cabinet Committee on Political Affairs. There'll be a meeting of the Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs. So this is the normal process we follow in our functioning of the government when such an eventuality is foreseen. Joshua.
Yes, Major General, we have seen reports of a sixth night of breaches of the truce at the line of control. What's the significance of this continued alleged firing that we've heard from Pakistanis over the other side of the Indian border?
Joshua, these are provocative attempts. These are attempts by Pakistan to needle us, to actually provoke us, because we saw the first provocation in the form of a speech by the Pakistan Army Chief General Munir, in which he raised the Kashmir issue. He talked about Muslims and Hindus and all those things. And it was unwarranted, because normally a military leader will not be giving a speech of this kind. Then we saw on 22nd of April, we saw the Pahalgam. So it was a fallout to the minds of the Pakistan military. They wanted this sort of an action to be carried out. So that was the second provocation. The third provocation is we are seeing on the line of control, as you rightly said, there have been a large number of ceasefire violations, and therefore India had to resort to diplomatic means first, trying to send a signal to Pakistan, message to Pakistan that we mean the business, the Indus Water Treaty, and all those other diplomatic measures were actually carried out. And now we are going to see a military response, because there is no letting up by Pakistan of the kind of provocation. Joshua, you would be aware of the type of statements being made by their ministers. And today, the ISPR, the head of the Pakistan Army, General Chaudhary, has also made a press conference in which he is blaming India for all that is happening in Pakistan and trying to portray India as a terrorist nation. So I think things have gone beyond a diplomatic. Even the United States is trying to advise India to show restraint. I don't think we are going to listen to any country now. We have decided to carry out a military response as of now.
Yes, Major General Khoja, I would like to quickly touch on that. We are running shorter on time, but you mentioned there the US, Marco Rubio, saying that calls will be had with members of the governments in India and Pakistan, also the UN, warning against escalations. You say that you don't think any of those warnings will be heard at this point following the devastating terror attack in Pahalgam. Why do you think that is?
You see, there is a lot of anger in the country because we have had enough. We saw so many things happening. The infiltration taking place in Rajouri, Poonch in the last 18 months. You have lost a lot of our soldiers and civilians. So this military response will be there, but I foresee only one single window as far as the US advisory is concerned, that whenever we carry out a military response, if we should not expect a retaliation from Pakistan. That constraint of the United States, Rubio, has to be passed on to Pakistan, that India should be allowed to do a military response, because the provocation has come from Pakistan. Because I foresee that in case Pakistan is going to retaliate, it is going to culminate into a near war-like situation, because then India is also going to retaliate after that. And it is a sort of a never-ending process, because once you reach a flashpoint in the war, being a military man myself, I can tell you today the forces are facing eyeball to eyeball. Indian army has been mobilized, the Pakistan army has been mobilized. So all we need is a flashpoint. And moment of there is a flashpoint, unfortunately there will be war.
Retired Major General Rajan Koja, thank you ever so much for joining us and providing some insight on the growing tensions between India and Pakistan. We can't forget, following the devastating terror attack that killed 26 civilians in Pahalgam. We, of course, will be across all of those developments as we get them. We move on now, and US President Donald Trump has claimed that with his China tariffs, he's ending the greatest job theft in the history of the world, as he believes that China has taken more jobs from the United States than any country has ever taken from another country. He also pledged that any deal with Beijing would be fair, not a $1 trillion loss like under Biden. Meanwhile, Trump has said that talks with India on tariffs are going great, and that according to him, the two countries would reach a trade deal soon. Reportedly, US Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick also said that the Trump administration had reached a trade deal and was waiting for the country's approval to announce it. Moreover, US Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent affirmed that India could be one of the first to sign a trade deal with the United States. Meanwhile, President Trump has signed an executive order intended to reduce the economic hit from multiple overlapping tariffs on automakers. According to a Commerce Department official, the move means that any automaker would not face both a 25% levy for an imported vehicle and a 25% levy on steel or aluminium. Thus, the measures would give the industry time to move supply chains to the United States. Staying in North America, and US President Donald Trump is now praising Amazon founder Jeff Bezos after the company denied reports it would display tariff-related costs to shoppers. Trump had reportedly called Bezos personally to object to the idea, which was floated by Amazon's low-cost shopping arm Haul, seen as a rival to Temu. Amazon later clarified the plan was never approved and not going to happen. Speaking to reporters, Trump called Bezos terrific and said he had done the right thing. But earlier in the day, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt slammed the initial reports, calling it a hostile political act. Amazon stocks dipped on the remarks. All this as US tariffs on Chinese goods rise sharply, with new rules squeezing small businesses and driving up prices across online platforms like Amazon, Temu and Shein. Moving on now, and BRICS foreign ministers failed to reach a joint communique at their recent meeting in Rio de Janeiro, highlighting internal rifts within the bloc. Despite differences, they agreed on a key issue, which was the condemnation of unjustified trade protectionism. Listen in to what Brazil's Foreign Minister Mauro Vieira has had to say on the matter.
Do documento aprovado, eu gostaria de destacar o firme rechaço de todos à ressurgência do protecionismo comercial.
Well, Brazil's foreign minister emphasised their collective rejection of rising trade barriers, stressing that tariffs and non-tariff measures must not threaten global trade stability. Here is what the foreign minister said.
E nós estamos trabalhando para compatibilizar todas as necessidades de cada um desses grupos para a declaração, então, dos chefes de Estado. E depois, o que consta da declaração com relação a questões do momento, questões de disputas comerciais, de tarifas. Houve consenso absoluto em todos os países e isso está consolidado no documento que vamos divulgar em seguida. Muito obrigado.
However, as mentioned at the start of the read, ministers could not find common ground on several issues. These included proposed UN reforms, particularly regarding the Security Council. Egypt and Ethiopia disagreed with some language in the declaration. The disagreement points to the challenges faced by the expanded BRICS group, which now includes diverse new members with differing priorities. Despite the lack of a joint statement, the group is expected to continue working towards a consensus ahead of the Leaders' Summit in July. We head now to the Middle East, and the Israeli military has released Asad al-Nasasra, a Palestinian paramedic detained after Israeli forces killed 15 emergency workers in southern Gaza last month. Nasasra had been missing for 3 weeks until the International Committee of the Red Cross confirmed his detention. He was among 10 detainees freed on Tuesday at a border crossing. Let's listen in to one of those free detainees.
مكثنا أكثر من 5 شهور في سجن يعني وضع كثير صعب كثير سيء بالنسبة لي كثير كان سيء أول مرة بفوت سجن زي هيك مقطوعين من الأخبار والاتصالات بدعو الجميع لإطلاق جميع أسرانا الموجودين داخل.
Meanwhile, the United Nations has condemned the ongoing violence in Gaza, with UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres expressing deep concern over the deteriorating humanitarian situation. Let's hear what he had to say.
The humanitarian situation throughout the Gaza Strip has gone from bad to worse to beyond imagination. I am alarmed by statements by Israeli government officials about the use of humanitarian aid as a tool for military pressure.
Well, this statement follows a recent series of Israeli airstrikes across Gaza, including a drone strike that killed 5 children in Gaza City, according to the Hamas-run health ministry. On the other hand, 59 Israeli hostages, both dead and alive, are still being kept by Hamas. We move now to the Russia-Ukraine conflict, and according to a South Korean lawmaker, around 600 North Korean soldiers have been killed while fighting for Russia in Ukraine. A member of parliament, Lee Seong-kwon, revealed that the casualties include approximately 600 deaths with 4,700 soldiers wounded. This follows Pyongyang's official confirmation of troop deployments to aid Moscow in its war efforts. Another development was seen at the United Nations, where France condemned Russia's GRU for cyber attacks targeting ministries, defence firms and think tanks, further destabilising the region. French Foreign Minister Jean-Noël Barrot accused Russia of blocking a ceasefire in Ukraine, urging President Putin to cease fire. He emphasised the need for a diplomatic solution while condemning Russia's actions in the region. Let's listen in to the French Foreign Minister Jean-Noël Barrot.
Les agresseurs ne doivent pas être récompensés aux dépens des agressés. Les frontières sont intangibles. Les États, quels qu'ils soient, sont souverains. Et j'en appelle donc au président Poutine pour lui dire cessez le feu, cessez le feu, cessez le feu.
Meanwhile, US Representative John Kelly called on both Russia and Ukraine to pursue a durable peace. Let's hear what the US representative had to say.
Right now, Russia has a great opportunity to achieve a durable peace. The burden for ending the war rests with Russia and with Ukraine. It is up to the leaders of both these countries to decide whether peace is possible.
Meanwhile, according to Ukrainian officials, Russian drone attacks on Kharkiv have injured 38 people, including 2 children, with several buildings struck and fires ongoing. Russia's defence ministry stated that its forces destroyed 91 Ukrainian drones overnight. The latest drone strikes followed Putin's announcement on Monday of a 72-hour ceasefire from the 8th to the 10th of May to mark the 80th anniversary of the victory of the Soviet Union and its allies in World War II. We head now to the Indo-Pacific region, and Japan and the Philippines have pledged to deepen defence ties amid rising tensions with China. This comes after Japanese Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba met Philippines President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. in Manila. This marks Ishiba's first visit to the country since taking office. Their talks focused on boosting security cooperation, sharing intelligence and starting negotiations for a new defence pact. The proposed acquisition and cross-servicing agreement would support Japanese troops during joint training missions in the Philippines. Both leaders strongly opposed any attempts to alter the status quo in the East and South China Seas by force. Let's listen to the Japanese Prime Minister and the President of the Philippines.
安全保障につきましては、近年、重層的に協力の進化が進められてきておりますが、ACSA物品役務相互提供協定について交渉を開始をするということで一致をいたしました。将来的な情報保護協定の締結に向け、政府間で議論を開始することを確認をいたしました。アメリカを含めました日本、アメリカ、フィリピン協力の重要性についても確認をいたしたところです。
On defense and security cooperation, it is of note that the Philippines is the first recipient of Japan's official security assistance. And even as a new initiative, barely 3 years old, the OSA has allowed our security agencies, especially the Department of National Defense, to achieve meaningful.
Meanwhile, the Philippines accused China of creating disturbances in the South China Sea. As Chinese naval forces conducted patrols, they said Beijing's actions infringe on its sovereignty and undermine regional peace. Over 14,000 Filipino and US troops are holding joint drills, which China has labelled as provocative. The Philippines insists its cooperation with allies like the US reflects pre-preparedness, not provocation. We head back now to the Middle East, and the UK Ministry of Defence has confirmed that British forces participated in a joint airstrike with UN forces in Yemen. The strike targeted Houthi rebel buildings used to produce drones. The operation took place overnight, approximately 25 kilometres south of Yemen's capital, Sana'a. The strike is part of ongoing efforts to counter drone and missile threats from the Houthi rebels who have been involved in an escalating conflict in the region. This latest military action follows a series of US airstrikes aimed at disrupting Houthi operations, which have been increasing in intensity in recent months. Moving on now, Cuba has arrested a high-profile dissident by the name of Jose Daniel Ferrer for violating the terms of his parole just 3 months after releasing the activist from jail as part of a Vatican-brokered deal with the Biden administration. According to Maricela Sosa, Vice President of Cuba's Supreme Popular Tribunal, Ferrer has failed to attend 2 mandatory court hearings, which is a violation of Cuban law and the conditions of his release. Sosa also stated that not only did he not show up, but he also announced through his social media profile that he would not appear before the judicial authority. Ferrer's sister posted on social media that her brother had been detained by police early on Tuesday, as well as his wife Nelva, their son and several activists. She wrote on X that they demand his immediate release and that all detainees and political prisoners are also freed. Meanwhile, Ferrer has maintained that he was wrongfully jailed by Cuban authorities from the start and that his presence at any judicial hearing is unnecessary. Heading to Europe now, a manhunt is underway in the Swedish city of Uppsala after a brazen triple shooting shocked the country just ahead of the annual Valborg Spring Festival. 3 people were shot dead inside a hair salon in central Uppsala around 5 p.m. local time. Eyewitnesses reported chaos as people ran for cover and a masked suspect fled the scene on an electric scooter. Police have confirmed the deaths and declared the case a special incident. A large area near Vaksala Square has been sealed off, and authorities are urging the public to come forward with any information. Sweden's Justice Minister Gunnar Strömmer condemned the killing as a brutal act of violence and said the government is closely monitoring the situation. Train services were also briefly halted in the wake of the incident. Let's hear what the Mayor of Uppsala, Erik Pelling, has had to say after the attack.
Jag är chockad som alla andra. Jag är bedrövad över att det här har hänt och jag är också förbannad över att det får hända i Sverige. Att människor tar sig rätt att skjuta, att mörda andra, att vi tvingas leva med den här grova kriminaliteten. Så jag känner också en stor frustration över att vi inte har lyckats bättre med att komma till rätta med den.
Let's move on now, and at LlamaCon 2025, Meta's first ever AI developer conference, CEOs Mark Zuckerberg and Satya Nadella discussed the future of AI in software development, highlighting the impact AI is having on the tech industry. Nadella revealed that 20 to 30% of Microsoft's code is now AI generated, while Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg predicted that AI will handle half of Meta's software creation within a year. Let's listen in to what Zuckerberg had to say.
The big one that we're focused on is building an AI and a machine learning engineer to advance the Llama development itself, right? Because I mean, our bet is sort of that in the next year, probably, I don't know, maybe half the development is going to be done by AI as opposed to people, and then that will just kind of increase from there.
Well, both CEOs also emphasised the potential of model distillation, a process that makes large AI models smaller, more efficient and more accessible. Meta introduced Llama API, a tool aimed at helping businesses easily integrate AI into their products. Llama API will compete with rivals like OpenAI and Google. The company also unveiled a standalone AI assistant app and plans to test a paid subscription service for its AI chatbot in the coming months, potentially opening up new revenue streams and innovative product opportunities. Moving back to the Indo-Pacific now, and China's Shenzhou 19 mission has been declared a complete success by state media after 3 astronauts safely returned to Earth. The capsule carrying Kai Zhuzhe, Song Lingdon and Wan Huazhe landed in Inner Mongolia following a 6-month stay aboard the Tiangong space station. The crew conducted scientific experiments and completed the longest spacewalk in China's history. Their return was delayed briefly due to bad weather at the landing site. Commander Kai and his team were greeted by ground crews and medical staff upon touchdown. The mission is part of China's growing push to become a top space power. Their successors, the Shenzhou 20 crew, are now continuing operations aboard Tiangong. That is all we have time for, but we will continue to bring you more of the latest breaking news from across the world.